Welcome to the Anthology of Enlightenment. Today with a famous master from the Middle East, Zarathustra, Zoroaster. He's called many names, but it's like almost like an Abraham, you could say. So today, Zarathustra, and using some inspiration given by him, and that's an interesting discovery too. So I looked for books and I'd say discovered some, but I wasn't really completely satisfied with them. You could see like the translation, something went wrong there, like something happened with that. And not that they all were not good or anything, but I like, no, there has to be more to there has to be more to this. There must be something that someone who actually found something, because it's like it's a long time ago that Zarathustra was sharing, and most of his sharing, you have to know, like most of his sharing was from father to son, from mother to daughter, for centuries. And you see, well, we know what happened with the Bible, for instance, that happened that way too. It's like stories told from father to son, from mother to daughter, and from mother to son probably too. And so that's why it's like, to find books, it is like, no, it's so common, it is so integrated in the culture, and that it has its own, its own roots, like this. And it's not so easy to discover for someone who actually is coming from the West and looking at it, like me. So after some research, I came still to Nietzsche. And Nietzsche has been studying Zarathustra since he was young. He was really into Zarathustra at a certain point, say especially the last years of his sojourn. And so he collected and he came to certain expressions that he used also as inspiration for his philosophy, for his thinking, for his looking at things, comparing and analyzing, of course. Now, that's not what we're going to do too much, but it is like the interesting part here is the discovery. Actually, this is what came to me in my direct experience of it all, is that you see that there's a lot written about masters and where they were, what they did, how many this and how many that, instead of where it's really about. And that's the story. It's like, okay, so what happened? What can possibly happen to someone who comes to like insight, to revelation, to knowledge? What happens with someone who does that? To look at it from a human perspective to a master that has come to this realization is still not very valuable. It might be a start of something, but it is not really where it's about. And where it's about, we love to hear that in its own expression, in the expression of the master itself. Otherwise, we can share anything. And so the interesting part then is, this is the same with Nietzsche, this is the same with Freud, talking about thinkers and about people who went deeply into the matter of soul, of consciousness, of awareness, of superconsciousness, of subconsciousness, and all of this. Like, what is the will of man? What is going on here? What they did, like same with Freud or Nietzsche, you could see this. It's like, in fact, hearing what's being shared, really discovering something, but still thinking that it has something to do with something outside of someone. that it, like, this happens so much, like as if you're blinded. You could say you're blinded by the message itself. You're blinded by the words that you hear, because they're like absolutely beautiful to hear them. Yeah, but that's not the end of the story. So to hear the words is one thing. To accept them for yourself is a whole nother thing. So you see that with Freud, for instance, and with Nietzsche, and with many others, that they could discuss and look at and analyze the material, soul-related material, you could say, or psyche-related material, or building great philosophies, but they forgot to include themselves in. In fact, they forgot to completely accept this, what they have heard, for themselves. And then something happens, because in fact you still have a distance to what is going on. Like, you still have a distance to where it's really about. Now, I was lucky actually with Master Teacher then. When I met him, he shared something very specific that had everything to do with an idea of spiritual healing, in fact. But it was this, and it's very simple, but you see it a lot, and that is this. It's like people channeling, channeling Jesus, channeling whatever, channeling a lot of information, like really beautiful messages, really great, or instructions for spiritual healing. Great, wonderful. They practice it too, but they forget one thing, and this is, I see this coming back a lot, but I was warned for it right from the start when when I met Master Teacher. He said, this is like, forget about that channeling, forget about becoming almost like an instrument for another one that you download, in fact, into your consciousness to follow instructions of how to do spiritual healing. Make it your own, like, let it be your own experience. Incarnate that what you hear, like, let it literally change your body and let it literally do something to you. And from there's the starting point. Then everything opens up. Now this is a great and not you don't hear it very often, this message, in fact, but it was a very specific instruction I received for myself. Now I recognize it when I read from Nietzsche's words or hear about his history. So you see then that something happens, and I'm not saying that I know the whole story exactly, but it is more like you see that he did not accept that for himself. You can have great ideas, you can so much teach them and explain to everyone how wonderful it is. So in the end it comes down to, okay, here I am. This is about me. Like, there is literally nothing else going on than me. Like, then I am waking up to the essence of who I truly am. Everything that I'm not falls away. Every idea that I have, whether I'm an incredible, most amazing writer or most amazing psychoanalyst, I still have to accept this message for myself and forget every story that I hold about myself. Every idea that I think I am, I'm not that. I don't need to make myself. I don't need to do any of these things. So this is really important. Now this is one point that I had, like, okay, I gotta bring that in, because we're not just looking at Zarathustra. Now we're looking at, there's an inspiration, and that is received by you. Now what are you going to do with it? You can write books about it and try to sell 100,000 copies. I've seen that a lot with the Course in Miracles, for instance, people talking about the Course in Miracles, writing books about it, and then the same story happens. Like, well, that's easy, then you don't have to accept it yourself, you can publish anything. But here it is, like, it starts with me. There's nothing outside of me. There's nothing that I need to convince. And this is only about my acceptance. If I accept this for myself, I'm free to do and not to do. I'm free to go and not to go. I'm completely free in myself, in the recognition that I'm all of this. And this is really, really lovely. It's a great message. So I write this to someone. I wrote this to someone too who was channeling. It's like every day a new channel information, almost like a newspaper. Like, Jesus told me this, Jesus told me that. Well, that's great. Now you're going to accept that for yourself. You take time to let that come to you and completely transform you, that you recognize yourself to be the Christ. That is the process. And that goes in, say, that dissolves every idea that you hold about yourself. Absolutely wonderful. And that's where the joy is. Otherwise, what are we doing? So that's the same with what I received today then with Zarathustra. This is in fact what he told me. So then there was another thing. Because we use, you have to understand this, that people in the Persian Empire, as I can call it now, it's like the Persian Empire, not the Islamic state, because it actually does not exist, but anyway, the Persian Empire, as it still exists right now, people are looking for inspiration. They don't get it from just being shot because they don't wear a little towel on their head. Like, that's not how you learn the love of God, for instance. So people are looking for the love of God. Now there is spiritual revival completely under the surface that you can't see happening, but it is very much alive because the need for it is so incredibly great because of the suppression by the regime. So it's like there's a whole, you can't believe it how much alive that is. This is the Persian Empire 2024. Like, there is so many people that have fresh new inspiration. And so with the Zarathustra, so there's a huge crowd, you could say, who is reinventing the Zoroaster teaching and using it to receive a new inspiration. And most of it is just, you can say, underground, because they cannot openly celebrate it or share it. But it doesn't take away that it's very, very, very much alive. So and that's why I was also very much surprised how alive the website is related to Zarathustra. It's like there's so many activities. And now this is great. I'm just seeing that, and that's why I share it. So one thing that happens here is then, and we're going to come to that in a second, and that's the meditation. Now the meditation has certain words, like it's a healing prayer for creation. Now that's an interesting part, of course. Like, does creation need a healing prayer? No. Creation is whole. Creation is whole and perfect. And then there's nothing wrong with creation. But then the question is, do I need to pray for the healing of creation in my consciousness? Well, what do you think the answer is? Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This is the same story. Like, I can walk around with a concept of, no, so creation is perfect. I don't care. I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to forgive. I don't have to do this and this and this and this, because I hold on to one concept and I think I'm saved by that. Big mistake. That's not how this works. This is still like a total transformative program in which you're actually going to accept the fact where you are at this point in time. look around. What is being stirred up in you? What is moving you to tears? What is hurting your heart? What is making you vomit if you look at things? What does it make you feel sick when you hear something? All of this is essential as an experience. Why? Because it's like there's work to do. There's work to do in order to not just walk around with concept in your mind, not just to walk around with dismissing things or negating circumstances. No, in fact, taking total responsibility for what you are seeing, even though you know that that's not the end of the story, because your perception doesn't necessarily, like, it does not have any meaning, but it does have meaning for you. And that's why, for instance, it's great to pray for the wholeness of creation, that you become the witness of that, that you start to see that there is no exception to the love of God. You know this. So that's really great. And that's why it's like, if you read and hear and listen the prayer that you will hear in a moment, you might think like, well, that's a very general prayer. Yeah, okay. But it can also be that it's like, no, you feel that something is going on with that. It's like you can still have a recognition of the wholeness of creation while you hear it. So it's like, and there are two things going on. And there are two things going on in your perception or your experience of yourself. And one part of that is, you are the giver of love. You give love to everything, right? You're the extension of the love of God. The other thing that might be going on in your consciousness is this: you ask for love. You will have to ask for love. When you forget to do that, you miss the opportunity to receive that and think that you're okay because you have a concept already ready to attack or to defend yourself. It's like, this is very subtle but very common. I see this happening all the time. It's like, you see it happen that you forget that you cannot dismiss anything. You cannot negate anything. No, you will have to come to a total acceptance of it and see it dissolve in front of your eyes. Otherwise, it's not going to be changed. It's not going to be healed. It's not going, yeah. So this is essential. So there were two things that I really love to share because of that what came to me in the preparation of this. It's like, thank you. That's really great. That's great information. Yes, I love to share that. So thank you, Zarathustra. So we're starting now with the meditation, and the meditation is a prayer from the worldheritage.com website. I pray for the entire creation and for the generation which is now alive and for that which is just coming into life and for that which shall come thereafter. I pray for that sanctity which leads to well-being, which has long afforded shelter, which goes on hand in hand with it, which joins it in its walk, and of itself becoming its close companion as it delivers forth its bidding, bearing every form of healing virtue which comes to us. And so may we be blessed with the greatest and the best and most beautiful benefits of sanctity. So may it be.
Je prie pour toute la création et pour la génération qui est désormais en vie, et pour ce qui vient juste de naître, et pour ce qui viendra par la suite. Je prie pour cette sainteté qui mène au bien-être, qui a longtemps servi d'abri, ce qui va de pair avec cela, qui le rejoint dans sa promenade et devenant lui-même son proche compagnon, alors qu'il exécute ses ordres, portant toute forme de vertu curative qui nous parvient. Et ainsi, puissions-nous avoir la chance d'avoir le plus grand et le meilleur et le plus beau bienfait de la sainteté. Il se peut qu'il en soit ainsi.
Thank you so much for joining in the prayer, the healing prayer. That's so lovely. So this is great. So we're continuing with Zarathustra, and Zarathustra, I'm going to share some details about him. It looks like a photographic image of him. That's of course an imagination. Okay, so Zarathustra, Spitama, more commonly known as Zoroaster or Zarathustra, was an Iranian religious reformer who challenged the tenets of the contemporary ancient Iranian religion, becoming the spiritual founder of Zoroastrianism. His life is traditionally dated to sometime around 7th and 6th century before Christ, making him a contemporary of Cyrus the Great, though most scholars using linguistic and sociocultural evidence suggest a dating to somewhere in the 2nd millennium before Christ. Zoroastrianism eventually became Iran's most prominent religion from around the 6th century BC, enjoying official sanction during the time of the Sassanid Empire until the 7th century AD. Zoroaster is credited with authorship of the Gathas as well as the Yasha Yaptanghaita, a series of hymns composed in Old Avestan that cover the core of Zoroastrian thinking. Zarathustra, however, looked at the people and wondered, oh wait, this is already Nietzsche. So I'm leaving this for now here. So it's like 7th, 6th century before Christ, probably. So that's about, no, it's quite a long time ago. It seems like that. And that's wonderful. So I'm not, like I always say, not too interested in dates, because it is like, yeah, okay, so here he is, he comes from there, and it's a master from the Middle East. Apparently he was a religious reformer. The established religion at that point was turned upside down by him, and he was at a certain point like seen as heresy, and he had to stop his activities, or the whole religion came to a stop. Not really, because that's never possible. We see this in Christianity too, like in 300 you should not tell anyone that you're a Christian, and otherwise you will end up in some of the beautiful tombs that are in Rome. But still it continued. Apparently there's a whole Christianity that came out of the tombs, literally, and suddenly was not underground any longer. Well, the same thing is still going on in Persia. That's still the same. Like now it's suppressed by 40 years of an Islamic regime. Whatever was happening before, like with the inspiration of Rumi, Hafiz, and Zarathustra, it lives forth. Books are in almost in many houses, and people are actually using it for comfort, as for inspiration, for all of this. So that's always really interesting. So and then suddenly it can come to the surface again. But like I said, we're not going too deep in that. I just want to mention it because it's easy when everything is open. Like I can put this video on YouTube, this recording, I can put that on YouTube with no problem. But hey, that is not always the case. That can change too. Who knows? But I don't want that anyway. But I don't want that for anyone. But it does happen even now with many, many, many people, and not being able to express themselves freely as we do here. But still, the experience can be totally the same. Now, this is really beautiful, and I see this like as an individual personal experience for myself, meeting ones from Iran who actually live there, but are so inspired and have such an incredible recognition with that. When we meet, we are like, oh yes, we continue. Where were we? And it is like that. It's like the recognition is universal. It is not. It cannot be set in or bordered in by country borders. No, it has nothing to do with this world, obviously. So that's so great. That's so great to discover that, but actually feel that too and experience that continuously, in fact. Whether you come from Malaysia, whether you come from China, whether you come from Hong Kong, whether you come from wherever in Asia or in Africa or in, it's like there's a universal recognition. Well, we get witnesses of that. Like I receive emails from people that are actually recognizing that. It's like, oh, so great to know you. Thank you so much for everything. This is an actual happening. Recognition is universal. It's beautiful. So great. Of course you know this, but I need to express it sometimes too. It's like I love to share that because I'm really grateful for it to see that it's occurring. Like there's a huge fire and it's burning everywhere. It's like an inner fire that is, it's like, here's more oil, here's more wind, blow it right in. So Zarathustra, like I said, I used the book also spoke Zarathustra in English, also sprach Zarathustra in German, and I use this very specifically. I only use very specific parts of it, and just to get the taste of it and see it from there. So there was a kind of an interesting podcast that I made. I read it also from that same book, and you see the language is very much placed inside the culture, obviously, but that can say cause actual fun, actual comedy. You see in this podcast that there's a donkey. He's continuously, in fact, doing something just by expressing himself. Well, what sound does a donkey make? Right? Well, you will hear that many times. And that is so interesting because it's like it breaks down every kind of human intellect. It brings it way, say, with the feet back on the ground. And I love that. So let's listen to that. I can actually not wait any longer. So this is the second part of the, it's called The Awakening. It's the second part of the podcast that I prepared. Thus Spake Zarathustra by Nietzsche. 77. The Awakening. After the song of the wanderer and shadow, the cave became all at once full of noise and laughter. And since the assembled guests all spake simultaneously, and even the ass, encouraged thereby, no longer remained silent, a little aversion and scorn for his visitors came over Zarathustra, although he rejoiced at their gladness, for it seemed to him a sign of convalescence. So he slipped out into the open air and spake to his animals. "Whither is their distress now gone?" said he, and already did he himself feel relieved of his petty disgust. "With me it seemeth that they have unlearned their cries of distress, though, alas, not yet their crying." And Zarathustra stopped his ears, for just then did the yea of the ass mix strangely with the noise jubilation of those higher men. "They are merry," he began again, "and who knoweth, perhaps at their host's expense. And if they have learned of me to laugh, still it is not my laughter they have learned. But what matter about that? They are old people. They recover in their own way. They laugh in their own way. Mine ears already have endured worse and have not become peevish. This day is a victory. He already yielded. The fleeth, the spirit of gravity, mine old arch-enemy. How well did this day is about to end, which began so badly and gloomily. And it is about to end. Already cometh the evening. Over the sea rideth it hither, the good rider. How it bobbeth, the blessed one, the home-returning one, in its purple saddles. The sky gazeth brightly thereon, the world lieth deep. O all ye strange ones who have come to me, it is already worth while to have lived with me. Thus spake Zarathustra, and again came the cries and the laughter of the higher men out of the cave. Then began he anew. They bite at it, my bait taketh. There departeth also from them their enemy, the spirit of gravity. Now do they learn to laugh at themselves. Do I hear rightly? My virile food taketh effect, my strong and savoury sayings, and verily I did not nourish them with flatulent vegetables, but with warrior food and conqueror food. New desires did I awaken. New hopes are in their arms and legs, and their hearts expand. They find new words. Soon will their spirits breathe wantonness. Such food may sure enough not be proper for children, nor even for longing girls old and young. One persuadeth their bowel otherwise. I am not their physician and teacher. The disgust departeth from these higher men. Well, that is my victory. In my domain they become assured. All stupid shame fleeth away. They empty themselves, they empty their hearts. Good times return unto them. They keep holiday and ruminate. They become thankful. That do I take as the best sign. They become thankful. Not long will it be ere they devise festivals and put up memorials to their old joys. They are convalescents. Thus spake Zarathustra joyfully to his heart and gazed outwards. His animals, however, pressed up to him and honoured his happiness in his silence. All of a sudden, however, Zarathustra's ear was frightened, for the cave, which had hitherto been full of noise and laughter, became all at once still as death. His nose, however, smelled a sweet-scented vapour, an incense odour, as if from burning pine cones. What happeneth? What are they about? He asked himself, and stole up to the entrance, that he might be able unobserved to see his guests. But wonder upon wonder, what was he then obliged to behold with his own eyes? They have all of them become pious again. They pray. They are mad. And said he, and was astonished beyond measure. And forsooth, all these higher men, the two kings, the Pope out of service, the evil magician, the voluntary beggar, the wanderer and shadow, the old soothsayer, the spiritually conscientious one, and the ugliest man. They all lay on their knees like children and credulous old women, and worshipped the ass. And just then began the ugliest man to gurgle and snort, as if something unutterable in him tried to find expression. When, however, he had actually found words, behold, it was a pious strange litany in praise and the adored and censed ass. And the litany sounded thus: Amen, and glory and honour and wisdom and thanks and praise and strength be to our God from everlasting to everlasting. The ass, however, here brayed, Yee-ah! He carried our burdens, he has taken upon him the form of a servant. He is patient of heart and never saith nay, and he who loveth his God chastiseth him. The ass, however, here brayed, Yee-ha! He speaketh not except that he ever said Ye to the world, which he created. Thus doth he extol his world. It is his artfulness that speaketh not. Thus is he rarely found wrong. The ass, however, here brayed, Yee-ha! Uncomingly goeth he through the world, gray's his favourite colour, in which he wrappeth his virtue. Has he spirit, then does he conceal it. Every one, however, believeth in his long ears. The ass, however, here brayeth, Yee-ha! What hidden wisdom is to wear long ears, and only to say yea, and never nay? Has he not created the world in his own image, namely, as stupid as possible? The ass, however, here brayeth, Yee-ha! Thus goes straight and crooked ways. It concerneth thee little what seemeth straight and crooked unto us men. Beyond good and evil is thy domain. It is thine innocence not to know what innocence is. The ass, however, here brayeth, Yee-ha! Lo, how thou spurnest none from thee, neither beggars nor kings. Thou sufferest little children come to me, come unto thee, and then the bad boys decoy thee. Then sayest thou simply, Yee-hay. The ass, however, here brayed, Yee-hay. Thou lovest she-asses and fresh figs. Thou art no food despiser. A thistle tickleth thy heart. when thou chancest to be hungry. There's the wisdom of a God therein. The ass, however, here brayed, ye are. Yeah, this is great. So the thought came up, of course, that when it was Palm Sunday that Jesus rode on an ass, on a donkey, into Jerusalem. And that's pretty amazing too. So maybe we'll take a look at that next week too, in the symbolics in Jesus, Gospels, you could say, where Jesus is described. It would be great to take a look at that a little bit, or deeply, who knows. So you see here that with the ingredients of the story, which is really has become like an anecdote as a story, that it's interesting. You literally hear somebody telling it to someone else. You know, it's like there's a story that is being transferred, but at the same time the story is really touching and really surprising. Like there's how can I say, it's like it takes you, when you read it, when you listen to it, like it takes you out of literally into a new story. I think that this was a really beautiful one. So the awakening, it's called. Man is an animal, and there's a rope over an abyss, like there's a rope over a depth, and there's a journey to climb this rope to the other side, to the side where something else can happen, you could say, like where the awakening takes place. But Zarathustra spoke in terms of the man is still an animal, as he's on that side of the rope. So if he decides to climb this rope, like you could say, like the way is narrow that you're going to walk. It's an interesting walk. It's an interesting climb to the other side of the rope, where the awakening takes place. Like you have to overcome all your fears. It's very scary what you're going to do. So you have to overcome all your fears in order to get to the other side. Now this is a beautiful symbolic way of expressing it. And that's lovely. So we will see this too in the next part that I'm going to read to you, which is also like a poem, because everything is poetic. The same, it's like it's the language of Persia, you could say, of Iran. Like it's poetry is just like the language, is where the songs are made, the ghazals and all this. It's the way that's being spoken. You can see in the background, like, what is this? This is a mosaic, almost like a mandala, with lots of detail. So everything is really like there's a lot of expression in all the material, and it has a high level of beauty in the color choice, in the music choice, also in the dance. Like the dance is also very much a part of the culture. As a language, as a way of expression, as a natural expression of man. And so it's interesting to see this back in the stories, but also visually. So let's get to the poetry then of Zarathustra, the second part of the poetry part. It's right at the start of the book of Nietzsche. Thus spoke Zarathustra. I have to get used to the English title because the German one is, like, to me, very famous. So here we go. Zarathustra, however, looked at the people and wondered, and then he spake thus: Man is a rope stretched between the animal and the superman, a rope over an abyss. You know, this is like man is a rope stretched between animal and Superman. The Superman is then being the God-man. A rope over an abyss, a dangerous crossing, a dangerous wayfaring, and a dangerous looking back, a dangerous trembling and halting. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. What is lovable in man is that he is an overgoing and a downgoing. So what that means we're going to discover a little bit. So what is great in a man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. It's like man is a bridge. That's a really interesting expression, because in fact what we know from A Course in Miracles, for instance, is like, well, the Holy Spirit is the bridge between God and man. And this bridge, you could say, is within you. So here you could say like, oh yeah, that comes together here. What is great in man is that he's a bridge and not a goal. If he thinks he's a goal, then we have a problem, but he's a bridge. So what is lovable in man is that he is an overgoing and a downgoing. I love those, Nietzsche says, I love those that know not how to live except as downgoers, for they are the overgoers, the ones that make it to the other side. It's like, you could almost compare this, and you will recognize it too, probably as a Sermon on the Mount, you know. Blessed are thee, you know. I love those that know not how to live except as downgoers, for they are the overgoers. I love the great despisers, because they are the great adorers and arrows of longing for the other shore. Yeah, you want to have commitment here. You really have to want this. I love those who do not first seek a reason beyond the stars for going down and being sacrifices, but sacrifice themselves to the earth, that the earth of the Superman may hereafter arrive. I love him who liveth in order to know, and seeketh to know in order that the Superman may hereafter live. Thus seeketh he his own downgoing. I love him who laboureth and inventeth that he may build a house for the Superman, and prepare for him earth, animal and plant, for thus seeketh he his own downgoing. I love him who loveth his virtue, for virtue is the will to downgoing, and an arrow of longing. I love him who reserveth no share of spirit for himself, but wanteth to be wholly the spirit of his virtue. Thus walketh he as spirit over the bridge. So this is also so great. So it's like there's a universal language going on that you recognize as from yourself. I love him who maketh his virtue his inclination and destiny. Thus for the sake of his virtue he is willing to live on, or live no more. I love him who desireth not too many virtues. One virtue is more of a virtue than two, because it is more of a knot for one's destiny to cling to. I love him whose soul is lavish, who wanteth no thanks, and noteth not give back. And for he always bestoweth, and desireth not to keep for himself. I love him who is ashamed when the dice fall in his favour, and who then asketh, am I a dishonest player? For he is willing to succumb. Yeah, I compare it then with the Course in Miracles because of the language and the bridge idea, the bridge between one side and the other side. It's like you can only come to the other side, you could say, by inspiration, by spirit. That makes it, and you use your capacity to do that in terms of, in fact, you see not yourself as the goal of it all. No, you see yourself as the bridge to the other side. And here's like deep wisdom in it that I love. I love to recognize that. It's like, it's beautiful how this is expressed, because it's like when you're a man, when you don't take this, when you don't become the bridge to the other side, you're literally still on with your feet on the ground on the other side of the abyss. You know, it's like you're still there. So you're just like the animals, you could say. You're still a machine, as Gurdjieff would say. Like you're still a machine circling around, because you actually don't make the step to become the bridge and forget about your own goal as misidentification of self. And this is what I really love about this. It's like, that's a beautiful way to describe it. And the comparison with the Sermon on the Mount, to me, is like huge. So that's really beautiful. All right, so I made a poem too that I love to share with you now, because I used a part from this specific poem as a start. I used a little bit different words. That was the first couplet, you could say, and from there on I go further. The first verse. Love him. I love him whose soul is generous, who wants no thanks and does not give back, for he always gives and desires not to keep for himself. I love him whose heart is open, who can receive and release his defenses, for he always is ready to let the next moment be complete. I love him whose mind is whole, who can be open, realizing the past is gone, for he always is receptive and has no need to prove himself. I love him whose hands are empty, expecting great things, ready to hold a hand and ready to embrace, surfing in all ways, folding hands to pray. I love him whose ears are open, listening with his whole being, beyond the words and forms, perceiving no differences, recognizing one as total self-interest. I love him whose eyes can see, not blinded by history, but welcoming the birth of a new moment, melting in the creation of his own being. I love him whose voice is radiating heavenly peace, no vibration expressed but to confirm what is already present and always will be. Who recognizes himself as an extension of love that created him, including all, embracing everyone as himself. That's so great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. So it's so great to let yourself be inspired to write some poetry, or to just use, like I did here, like use one verse from his expressions and continue on with it, like in your own language, in your own, see what comes when you start to express this. I love that. I always love that process so much. So thank you so much for this part. This was like the Zarathustra Experience. And so next week we have Jesus Christ of Nazareth coming to the studio. And he will express himself in really different ways, and beautiful inspiration too. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope to see you there, and you can still sign up for it, so you're welcome to join. Thank you for everything, and see you soon. Bye for now.